Just a few quick housekeeping things for everybody. If you have a question, feel free to either use one of the raising your hand emoji or put it in the chat below. We'll be monitoring that throughout this call. Please remain muted. It'll kind of help us be able to hear Michael perfectly clear. Feel free to have your camera on. If you don't want to, no worries, but it's always nice to see your smiling faces. So without that, I'll turn it over to Eric and Michael. I just want to thank you guys so much for hopping on, and especially thank Michael for taking time out of his day to speak with us all. So pass it over.
Thank you, Cassie. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Cassie. Thanks for setting this up. Thanks for everybody involved in helping make this happen. Thanks to Jeff Surratt, who couldn't be with us today. Had a last-minute meeting come up with headquarters, but certainly pleased and honored to have Michael Breed with us for this Coach's Corner. I'm not sure an introduction is really needed. I know everybody on this call knows quite well what Michael has achieved it thus far in his career and some of his successes, but excited to hear more about them. Maybe see a little bit about the studio that Michael's coming to us from here today, that you've probably seen him on TV or listen to him on Sirius XM through. But really kind of open up the conversation. We've got some questions that the Teaching and Coaching Committee had submitted that we can start with, but as Michael and I talked about this ahead of time, really opening it up to wherever the conversation goes. We can certainly do that and look forward to this being interactive in that way. So I guess we can start with Michael, if you don't mind kind of showing us a little bit about the space and how it works there and some of what you've got in there. That might be a good place to start.
Sure, absolutely. And Eric, I appreciate you and everybody with the section having me on. I always love talking to the section and trying to help us all get better. You said something at the very beginning about things that I've been able and fortunate enough to be able to do. I will tell you that I know this, and many of you know this as well. We only get to where we are with the help of others. Hard work obviously pays off, but there are doors that get opened that we get to go through because somebody was willing to open a door and help us get to where we ultimately get to. And so I appreciate all the things that I've been able to do, and I don't take them lightly, but I will regularly make phone calls to individuals who have done things for me that have allowed me to achieve some things that most people haven't been able to achieve, including a studio like this. So before I do that, I want to, Gibbsy, if you could just pull that full. One of the individuals that is, in fact, the only other individual that's in the studio here is my friend Steve Gibbs. So Gibbsy, if you could just pan that thing over to where you are. That guy right there is operating the cameras, and he is an integral part to all the things that we do. The studio is phenomenal, and there have been a lot of people that have been a part of assisting with this studio getting to where it is. But what I can tell you is that guy who you met is the brains behind the operation. He's the guy who runs all the cameras. There are 14 of which that are in here. He's the guy who comes up with ideas and let's move this camera to here and let's move this camera to here. And we've been in here now for 6 years doing this stuff. And I would say we are adjusting and learning and changing almost every single year to try to get to where we are. So let me kind of steer you through what we have here. Jump that up to a camera 10 shot, if you would. So pan that thing right down to where you are there, if you would, Gibbsy. And this is operated by one individual. All this stuff right here controls my ability to talk with you, my ability to hear what you have to say, also to all of the cameras. And the cameras basically move much like you just punching a button up on your computer. The cameras are preloaded. As I said, there are 14, 10 of which are Panasonic cameras that go directly to what we would call program. And then 4 of the other cameras, or 5 of the cameras that we have, those cameras now are involved with the V1 system that I have in here for video analysis, which I'll show you in a second. But in effect, jump over to a camera 8 shot. So this shot that we have right here, this is a shot, the camera is put up into the baffles up above the hitting area, and it shoots down into this set here, which is a set that we use for CBS. I do 3 different shows for CBS Sports. We have a show called Course Record that airs before the PGA Tour event. So if the tour comes on at, make this up, the tour comes on at 2, we have a show that comes on at 1 or 1:30. It's a half an hour show, and it basically sets up what's going to go on, talk about some current events that are taking place in the game of golf. We do that for CBS Sports, and then CBS HQ and CBS SN will do shows here. The we is Greg Ducharme, my partner on Sirius XM Radio, is also involved in the other things that I'm doing here. So this is that shot there, and as you see, we put the PGA logo, the old PGA logo, but a PGA logo in the screens that we have here. We also have, and I can't even remember the number of screens that we have here, but it's double digits, whatever that number is. So we have the screen set up here, and then we have a screen here. This right here happens to be a locker that I moved. So behind this is the door that goes into my house. This room is an 800 square foot room that's right above my 3-car garage. And I bought this house because of this space so that I could do what I wanted to do. As I was preparing to leave Golf Channel, I was preparing to do what I'm doing right now. And it's a lot of work, but it has been a really good decision. And obviously I couldn't have done that without Greg and without Steve. So this is a locker room where we do what we call Coach's Corner. This is my definition of Coach's Corner, not your definition of Coach's Corner. And then we have these screens that are over here. So this screen right here, which I'll show you if we get to it, is what all my club data will be. So it'll tell me about angles of attack and impact points and all that stuff on the club face. This over here is a Microsoft Surface Hub that allows me to analyze swings and do all that. So I've got cameras that are positioned down the line. So that's a down the line camera. And don't be afraid to pull that full if you want to pull that full. So this is the face on shot that we have. Then I have a camera that's up in the ceiling here that shows an overhead shot. So this is me getting into the overhead shot here. And then there's another camera which is behind this screen over here that I'll take out. I call it my worm cam, and I'll put it on the ground and it'll show very, very close impact positions. There we are on 4 impact positions of what's happening with the ball in the face. So I have that there. And then this is camera 5, which I don't even know if that's focused up yet because yeah, it is. So this is a sort of a knee-high camera that I'll do, and it's on a tripod so I can move that all over the place. But I pretty much primarily stick with cameras 1, 2, and 3. And then Gibbsy, if you can bring camera 4 down here, this camera here will show you what we call the ball data. So this will give me all the information on what I'm looking at with this a given shot. So Lou Guzzi is very familiar with the About Golf simulator, which is the simulator that I have in here. And I've been with About Golf for an extended period of time. And there's a reason why I'm with About Golf and not with others, although I am a part of the Foresight family and I use the Quad, but I don't use their launch monitor / simulator stuff. I use About Golf. But this gives me all the information that I want to know or my students want to know. And then if you go to camera 1, Gibbsy, so this is the downline shot. That's the shot of the screen that we have. It's a 15-foot wide and about a 9-foot high screen. The ceiling height that I have in here is about 12 feet. And so I can do whatever I want. And then this floor that I'm standing on, it moves, and it moves in 4 different ways. So I can move the north, south, east, west, and it's about 21 feet long. And I can putt underneath it. So under here, under this mat, which is my hitting mat, is the putting floor. So I have the ability to putt, make full swings, and do pretty much everything I want to do except hit bunker shots. And that's that's very, very quickly what this studio looks like. Now, I will tell you that the reason why I decided to do this was twofold. One, because I don't want to work on weekends. I have two young boys that are now 11 and 12. And 6 years ago, my beautiful wife, Carrie, and I sat down and we had a conversation. And she said, okay, we're done doing this. We're going to have another model. That model was something that I thought about doing about 2 years into doing the Golf Fix. I did the Golf Fix for 9 full years. And about 2 years into doing that, I started trying to figure out the next plan. And one of the things that I have done for an extended period of time in my career, both personally and professionally, is I journal. And I carry with me in my backpack. If you ever see me, you can just say, hey, Breeder, can I look in your backpack? What you'll see in there is you'll see a notebook of some type, spiral or whatever. And in there, I write down all my ideas, all my goals, all my, I have written a couple of books and a couple of movies. The books have been published. The movies have yet to be picked up, but it doesn't mean that they're not great ideas. I think they're great ideas. Just, I can tell you all about them. I think they're funny. But anyway, the point is, and the reason why I do that is because it helps to paint my future. And so what I like to try to do is I like to try to have 1-year plans and 5-year plans, 1-year goals, 5-year goals. What am I going to do today? What is tomorrow going to look like? And so I've done that ever since I kind of got into the business. I had these plans, but I never really wrote stuff down and past the goals. I have gotten into this and I have made a habit of doing this. So I write in my journal and then I read my journal. If I fly somewhere, I write in it. And when I fly back, I read what I wrote. And then I keep doing that stuff and that kind of updates. And then the next thing you know, this is born. And so what this has done for me and what it's done for Greg and obviously Gibbsy is it provides a living. But the other thing that it does is it achieves my end goal, which is I want to watch my sons play baseball and hockey and all the things that they're doing. I want to be a husband to my wife. I want to be able to take a vacation. We're going to go on vacation tomorrow. And we're going to be gone for about a week. And I wouldn't be able to do that. And I couldn't do that when I was a head golf pro. I couldn't do that as a golf pro. And so it was something that I aspired to do. And a lot of people tell me I couldn't do it. And that was sort of a motivator for me. I didn't get upset at them. I just simply said, I'm going to show you that I can do it. And so I've set about doing this. And I've been very fortunate in people that I have surrounded myself with who have helped to enable where I am and what I'm doing. And so one thing I would tell you is do that for your success. I can tell you now, every single person that I have suggested do this, they've done it. Those that have had great success. This is not an idea that I got. It's an idea that I read. There's a guy named John Maxwell who wrote a book called Thinking for a Change. It made sense to me. I wanted a change and I needed to think about how I was going to do it. And what he suggested was doing exactly what I said. Get a book, write in it and his suggestions were you write in it 30 minutes a week, spend one full day a month and 2 full days a year writing in your journal. Now, I didn't do that, but I did take that information and that model and apply it to every time I get on a plane, because that's where I have idle time. Every time I get on a plane, I write and then I read. I write and I read. And then all of a sudden, over a period of, 20 plus years, this is all born and I get to do, what I want to do, which is to be a husband and be a dad. So that's this studio. That's how I got here.
That's phenomenal. And you've touched on a couple of the topics already that some of the questions came in with, but one of them around, your passion and energy. Where does that come from? I think you kind of highlighted a little bit of it, but obviously, looking at your career, you've been at amazing places with great opportunities, and obviously had to make some difficult decisions to leave maybe what appears on the outside as a great opportunity, and you've created another good one, great, if not better. That's got to be tough to make that decision, but you've kind of included a little bit of info already on how you made those decisions, what led you to the next thing, kind of. But where does your passion and energy come from? The why behind it.
So that's a great question, and that's another great book. Start with Why, Simon Sinek. It's phenomenal. Yeah, there is a why for everything, right? And this will take a second, but this is kind of fun. So I went to a school called Randolph-Macon College, and it was great. It's down in Virginia. It was a great school, and it was instrumental in what I get to do. But they are known as the Yellow Jackets, and what I have in my life, when I looked back at my life, my movement was that of a bumblebee. I was kind of abstract in my motion. I would zoom over here and zoom over here and zoom up here and go down there, but I wasn't really getting anywhere. I had movement for movement, but I didn't have movement with a direction. And what I decided, one of the things that I get the privilege of doing is doing motivational speaking. And one of the things that I talk about in one of my presentations is called motion with direction. And what I have found in my life, and particularly in writing in this journal, was that when we all move every day, and the question is, where are we moving to? Are you moving to a place where you want to go? Have you thought about where you want to go? Much like golf, right? I teach elite players to play golf backwards. Where's the hole location? What's the easiest way to access that hole location? How do we get to that access point off of the tee and then go about trying to get that direction? And that's what I try to do in my life. And so what I do is I sit down and I go, okay, where do I want to be? What do I want to do? And then how do I go about doing what I want to do? So I wanted to be a great teacher. So I sought out a great teacher. I applied for a job. I got a job. His name was Daryl Kessner. And I learned a lot from Daryl, and I followed his model. And then I did the same thing through the course of my career, in every single thing. Motion with direction. It was directed energy. And I no longer move like a bumblebee. I move like a jet. I fly from here to there, boom. And that's how I do it. And then I make sure in my journal, what I write is, okay, where am I going and how am I going to get there? Like, what are the things that I need to do to get there? Now, back to the question of passion. So I had an uncle who delivered this line to me when I was about 18 years of age. And he said, Michael, it doesn't matter what you do, as long as what you do the very best you can do it. So that was like a horse getting whipped. Like, I'm going to run faster now because I have dyslexia and I was never a good student. And I worried, particularly at an early age and through college, I worried what I was going to do for a living. I never felt like I was smart. And while I worked hard, I never felt like I reaped the benefit of my efforts, in large part because I didn't know how to study. And then also in large part, I didn't know how to study with my brain. My brain processes information a little bit differently. It's very spatial. And so I was learning in a very analytical way. And that's not conducive to me being my very best. And it's one of the reasons why I teach the way I teach. And I didn't learn that stuff for quite some time. But when my uncle delivers this message, I went, okay, all I got to do is figure out my passion. And if I figure out my passion, then I'll have my work ethic and I'll be great at what I do. But I had to learn how to do this. And so what I found was, I found this stuff in books. I found this stuff in chasing my direction. I found how I learned. I found all these little different nuggets, which is why in my library of instruction books, it's only filled with about maybe half instruction books. The other half is filled with motivational books and self-help books and wisdom from John Wooden and John Gordon and John Maxwell and a whole host of individuals that are studying things much like you, Eric, studying things on how we can become better. And while I'm not a great reader and it takes me a while to read, I read because I know that through the wisdom of others, I can become smarter. And then at that point, I can help others get better. Now, one of my other passions is I love to help people. And that's why, like when Jeff calls me up and he says, hey, will you do this? My answer is yes. When Lou says to me, hey, can you do this? I'm going to say yes, because what I love is I love helping people. I get tremendous reward, the gratitude that I feel internally by watching Mario Guerra have great success and become a head golf professional at Quaker Ridge. Greg Ducharme, Steve Gibbs, all these different people who have come into my life and have gone on to have some successes through things that I've done are exactly what I got. Like I got into Daryl Kessner's life for a while, and Dave Spencer and Bob Kletke and Sean Garrity and Tom Henderson, and all these people have been in my life and they've helped me become what I have been able to enjoy, this life that I get to live. And so I love that part, and I wanted to help people. I wanted my life to matter. So that was another motivating thing for me. And then the final motivating thing for me is, and you talk about attitudes and energies and passions and all these things. My dad died of Alzheimer's. And what I learned through that experience was, I don't know how many days I get on this planet. Who knows what's going to happen? God forbid nothing, but who knows? I could pass away in 2 days. And what I know is that I don't know how many days I get, and I'm not going to waste my days being upset or having a bad attitude. So I wake up every day with what I call the word of the day, and I do that on my radio show, but I've done that in my life for my life because I want to have a mindset that I'm going to live my life with. I'm going to be engaging. I'm going to be entertaining. I'm going to be smarter. I'm going to learn. I'm going to be open-minded. Whatever it is, I'm going to have that in my day. And having that word as my direction, right? The motion with direction. So my direction is open-minded. Now I'm moving into an open-minded space. Somebody's going to tell me something that I might disagree with. Rather than getting upset at them because they have a different opinion of whatever, I'm going to listen to what they have to say. I'm going to challenge them for what they have to say, but I want to try to learn about why they have this belief in whatever that belief is. And it works. And so it's to answer that question is not as simple as it's one thing. It's a whole bunch of things that kind of come together that make this incredible pasta that I get to enjoy with my friend Lou Guzzi at his favorite restaurant. It's a whole lot of ingredients that go into that allow me to live the life that I get to live.
Yeah. That's neat. I mean, you said it to start as well, that, you're standing on the shoulders of many others who've helped make this happen. I think that's part of what's great about the PGA of America and being a member and working at numerous facilities where you build your network and everybody along the way has helped making us each into what we are and providing us the opportunities we have. So it's great to hear. How about take a couple of minutes, shift into a little bit more golf instruction related topics, and we can see where this goes. But then also, if anybody else on the call has questions or wants to hop in, please do so. As we think about on the golf instruction side, I'd be interested kind of to start. What are we had a question put into us. What's your all-time favorite go-to drill? But that one seems, maybe you have one, but it also seems pretty big. Are you seeing particular topics or particular success within some of those particular topics that you commonly address with various types of golfers, or anything that kind of stands out as far as what you're working on, or particular drills that you have had great success with?
So, it's a really interesting question. And what I have found to be the most successful thing for me is understanding how to teach people, right? And so it's not necessarily found in a drill, it's found in hundreds of drills. And what I like to try to do is the analogy that I try to provide is this. I want to be a restaurant that serves all meals. So if you like pasta, I can make great pasta. If you like Chinese food, I make my Chinese food is phenomenal. But I also have Latin cuisine. I have Brazilian food. I have Mexican food. I've got American food. I make a great hamburger. I have good French. Like, I have everything. And I have everything because I have a war chest of drills to help people improve. They might not feel it in a motion, right? They might feel it in their mind. They might visualize it. They might experience it through whatever. So all my stuff is all designed to be able to teach everybody, and to teach everybody whatever it is that they want, however they want to swing. If you want to stack and tilt, you want a Ballard, you want to swing like Lou Guzzi, you want to learn his philosophy, you want to understand Butch's philosophy. Like, I talk to everybody about what they believe. And then I try to steal little drills. Now, I have the privilege of being able to do it by calling up Lou and saying, Lou, we've got instruction week next week, and can I borrow 12 minutes of your time for the radio? And Lou goes, yes. Why? Well, Lou wants to help people play better golf. But Lou also understands, like I understand, and like you said about network, it's our brand. It's going to be good for Lou to be on the radio. So it's a smart thing for him to say yes. And so he does. But what happens for me is I get to question Lou about what Lou believes. And all of a sudden, I learn Lou. We're going to have an instruction week next week. I'm going to interview, but in the last 3 days and tomorrow, I'm going to interview 21 different coaches that include Butch Harmon, Chuck Cook, Joe Hallett, Lou Guzzi, Trillium Rose. Like, all these people have all this wisdom. And I sell it like I'm going to help you guys grow your brand. But what's really happening is Daddy is learning a lot about what these other people think. And my instruction gets better because I get something from them as a gift. So that's a big deal. But let me tell you and I say that because I had a chance to talk to Butch Harmon, and Butch is a great coach. And I asked Butch not the same question, but a similar question. And he answered it. I asked him, what's the most important thing? Is it grip or is it ball position? And he said to me, club face. Now, of course, club face is the most important thing. And that's what I teach all the time. But I didn't ask the question. Like, it's one of those where, I wish I'd asked the question differently. But Butch and I have a really good friendship. And so it's a big joke. And it's a great interview. And if you all want to learn a lot, like, I appreciate you hanging out with me for a little while. But Butch is going to be on the show next week. We have a 21 or 2 minute instructional lesson with Butch. But Butch said most important thing is face. Now, the reason why I tell you that is what I like to do is, this is not a drill, but it's a drill. It's an understanding of how I teach people a thing I call deflection. And what I do is I take a board, and Gibbsy, if you could, just take that 5, zoom that thing in for a second. And this is a very, very easy way to get people to understand the power of the face. Try to keep my head in there if you would. I love you very much. But okay, so if I take this wood and I hold this wood like this on this angle here, and I drop this ball like this, and I gave you 3 options. Option 1 is this ball would hit here and it would deflect that way. Option 2, it was hit here and it would bounce straight up into the air. And option 3 is it would hit here and it would go this way. Everybody would say, and everybody does say, golf pro or not, it's going to deflect that way. And I say that's exactly right. And that's what happens with a golf club. You hit a ball with a loft, so a sand wedge here, a driver here, and they deflect differently. Now, the same thing is true if I take this wood and I aim it to the right or to the left. So not only will it deflect up, but if it's up and open, it's going to deflect up and open. And if I hold it this way, it's going to deflect up and closed, or left and right. And so what I first try to get people to understand is the influence of the face. And once they are with me on the face, now I can talk to them about what other favorite drills that I need or whatever correction they need to work on in their golf swing. So what I would say is my favorite thing to do is to show people stuff, because that's the way the mind processes information best, is visually. And then off of the visual cue, then there's some other things that we get into. So it might be an analytical thing, it might be a kinesthetic thought, it varies in whatever it does. But when it's all said and done, I'm starting with visual. So what I'll do is I'll come over here and I'll take an individual and I'll go, okay, this was a lesson that I had today. So this individual is making a swing and he's got the club across the line, his elbow here, and you could pull that full, Gibbsy, so that everybody can see it. His elbow's way up here. There's a ton of space between his arm there, and he's obviously left-handed. So I say to him, what does this guy look like? And I show him a video of somebody whose trail side is a little bit lower and the elbow is below the shoulder. He goes, the elbow is below the shoulder. And I go, great. All right. So now what I want you to do is I want you to keep your elbow below your shoulder. Now, I didn't tell him to do that. That's what he noticed. So now he's an active participant in this direction. Keep your elbow underneath. I didn't put anything under there because I didn't make the assumption that he needed that right away. I just wanted to let him do it. And so all of a sudden, he takes the club back. His elbow stays under his shoulder right here. The club isn't quite as far across the line. His lead arm, his right arm, now gets a little bit lower. And he goes, wow, what a difference that is. And my response is, look at what you did. Not what I did. Look at what you did. And so I'll get to this last part of what I think is really important in lessons. Again, not a drill, but just an understanding. So what I try to share with my students is this. And this is, I have a preamble that I give in every lesson. First lesson, I have this preamble. There's no such thing as a stupid question, no such thing as a stupid answer, and I don't know is a fine response. But you can't just bail to I don't know. What I need you to do is I need you to think about whatever it is that I've asked you, and if you don't have an answer, I don't know is fine. All I'm trying to find out is how your brain thinks about a golf swing. There is no right or wrong. It's, do you like pasta? Yes or no? And they go, yes. I go, great. Okay, what kind of pasta do you like? And I'm just learning about what they do. The same thing is with this golf swing. So in this preamble, what I share with them is this. We have a boat, and there's 2 seats in the boat. You have an oar, and I have an oar. If I row and you don't row, we're going to go in a circle. If I row and you row in the opposite direction, we're going to go in a faster circle. But if I row and you row in the same direction, we're going to go somewhere. And so what I need to have happen is for you to row in the direction that I'm rowing in, or I need to row in the direction that you row in, which means if you disagree with what I say, tell me. If you have doubt about what I'm saying, you tell me. If you are confused about what I've said, that's my fault, not yours. Now that's back to my dyslexia. So I have to say it better. I hold myself accountable for the information that's coming out of my mouth to get into their brain. I need them to understand it. That is communication. Communication is not me talking and them not listening. Communication is me talking and them listening and then them understanding what I'm saying. That's communication. So what I explain to them is we're in the boat. And if you get out of the boat by either not rowing or rowing in the opposite direction, I need to know. And so that puts responsibility on them to take active direction. They are actively involved in where we go. And I'm holding them accountable to that, which now allows me to hold them accountable to the prescription that I give to them afterwards. And that prescription might be do this drill, read this book, watch this video, make these swings, do whatever. Now they're held accountable. And so that's kind of how I will approach a student. And that's honestly, of all the things, like my favorite things to do, my favorite drill, that's my favorite thing. That first moment where I get people to understand exactly where we're going and how we're going to do it and their responsibilities as well as my responsibilities and how they hold me accountable and I hold them accountable. And so that's how I would kind of answer that question.
Hey, Michael, Jeff Surratt, buddy. Good to see you.
Hey.
Thanks again for everything.
How are you, my friend?
I'm good. He had to step out for a minute. So first off, when I came up and took my lesson, you never gave me the boat analogy, so it took a little longer for me to catch on, which I'm a little upset at.
I didn't want to charge you by time, so I didn't want to waste that. I just was simply, you're going to do this. And then I take that whip that your good friend and my good friend Lou Guzzi has, and I just start cracking that thing. So that's how I roll.
Yeah.
With you.
Yeah, there was no warm and fuzzy in that lesson. That's all right. Don't worry about it. So one of the other questions that came up, so kind of following along what he was talking about from a lesson perspective, where do you start with? So if somebody came to you and they were a blank slate, never played golf before, where do you start?
So it's an interesting question. So that's the first place that I start, is getting them to understand the face. And then what I attempt to do is, and this is a hard one because a lot depends on the age of this person. So if I have, and I will tell you, if it's a woman versus a man, that also has something to do, plays into it. But if I have a 9-year-old, I'm going to handle them a little bit differently than I'm going to handle a 39-year-old or a 49-year-old, right? So let's just assume that we're talking about a 39 or 49-year-old male. The first thing I'm going to do with them is I'm going to ask them their reasoning behind what they're doing, right? So I want to know why they're here. I also want to know how they got to me, right? So there's a lot of Q&A here, right? And I'm with you on, well, okay, where are we starting with the swing? But before I can get to that, I got to know the motivations. Like, where, like, why, how, like, talk to me a little bit. So the next thing that I'll do from there is, and I get to all this, but I just want to give you this kind of concept. The next thing I do is I talk to them about time. Now, this is where the age thing comes in, right? So if I have a 15-year-old that just got out of school, I got 3 months, they don't have a job, I can do whatever I want. If I have a 32-year-old woman who just had twins, 8 months ago, they don't have a lot of time, right? And so what I try to do is, and this is something that I've gotten pretty good at over the last say in the last decade, is the time management and the understanding of time management. So I have my students go through literally a time portfolio, and that is how many hours in the week, how many hours do you spend sleeping, how many do you spend eating, how many do you spend in the car, how many do you spend, and literally we go through, we account for every single hour of every single week. They have hobbies. I want to know what their hobbies are. I want to know where golf is on their list of hobbies. For us, it's a profession. For some, it's a hobby. So where is it? I had one guy who liked to fly planes. He flies every single weekend. He has to fly an hour and a half every weekend. So he takes up all this time, and all of a sudden he said to me, listen, I'm a 10 handicap. I want to be a 5 handicap by the end of the summer. And by the time we go through the time allocation, he looks at me and he goes, I can't get to a 5 by the end of this. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have to say that to him. He can figure it out. He's a smart guy. So now all of a sudden we start to be able to set a realistic goal. You know what? It's realistic for me to think I can do that in 3 years. Great. So we got a 3-year plan. Not uncommon for us to find the time allocation with each individual, and then allow them to take responsibility and accountability for, what their goals and directions are going to be. So, but let's just say that we've got somebody who's got tons of time. They want to play golf only for themselves. We don't have to worry about a shot clock or anything like that. Here's where I start. The first thing that I have them do is, without a golf ball, I don't care about how they hold the club. A lot of people go, it's the most important thing. I do think it's a very important thing. I don't know that it's any more important than ball position, but it's an important thing because you can't move a golf club without holding on to it, right? But I do think that, like, people go, well, posture is really important. I go, well, it's not that important. I could stand with my back to a target and I could hit a ball this way, and my posture wasn't good. I wasn't bent at my waist. I can do this. I've seen people hold the club like this and hold the club like this, and I've seen players that lost their arm swing one-handed. Like, there's a lot of different ways to play this game. And so what I try to do is, I want a player who has got a golf club to show me their motion. And I will call it a swing maybe, or call it a motion, but I want them to say, like, this is simply this. Like, how are you going to take, and this is what I call Fred Flintstone golf. How are you going to take this thing and hit that thing so that it goes towards that thing? Right? And are you going to grab it like this and go like this? Are you going to take it up here? Like, what would you do? And then from there, I've got a starting point. Because one of the things that I have learned in my life is, I don't want to correct something that doesn't need to be corrected. Somebody, for their first time, they get up here and they hold the club with 10 fingers, and they take the club back, and the club face is in a really good position, and their plane is really quite good, and they kind of move it through. Great. I'm not going to change their grip, because they have a feel of what's going on with the club. They know how to move the shaft. They understand, however they understand it, what's going on with the club face. Maybe they watch some videos and they just kind of mimic what's happening. Maybe they have an uncanny ability to copy. Great. Right? I gave a lesson to a guy named Bronson Burgoon, who's a PGA Tour player, a phenomenal talent, went to college on a golf scholarship. And I'm working with him down at the Players Championship. This is probably, 4 or 5 years ago. And I said to him, okay, hit a little flop shot for me. So he takes the club, he sets up, he just goes boom and hits this flop shot up in the air with a 56-degree wedge. And I said, what'd you do? He said, I don't know. I said, you mean you have no idea what you go? No, I visualized a high shot, and then I just hit a high shot. Now, as a coach, the question becomes, are you going to change that? Or are you going to let him do that? And so for me, I just let him do it, right? Hit it low. And all of a sudden he hits it low, and he does certain things to hit it low. I don't need to correct the genius. And so I don't assume that the person that I'm teaching, whether it's their first time or their 50th time, that they have a flaw. I'm going to just let them do whatever they do and then go there. Now, back to this other thing. How do I teach a first timer who doesn't have that skill set, who doesn't really understand how to move a club? And what I try to do is this. I will have them without a golf club. I just piece it together. They're going to hold their hands here, and I'm going to actually get on the other side, and I'll hold their hands. And I'm going to swing their hands up like this and put them into a position. And then I'm going to swing their hands up like this. And then I'm going to step away after a little while, and I'm going to let them just do that. Now, what I then want to do is I want to allow them to move their body as well. So I'll try to find an analogy. And when I talk to them, I try to find out, have you played any sports? Have you danced any? Have you, what have you done physically? And then I try to use analogies that they're familiar with. So they might be a tennis player. Okay, so if you're a tennis player, how would you wind up your forehand? Well, I'd take it back like this. Okay, so when you take it back like this, what do you do with your footwork? Well, I learned by Harry Hopman. He said, you got to close your hips. Okay, so let's do Harry Hopman. We're not going to move our feet, but let's close our hips like we're going to hit a forehand. Except this time, what I want you to do is I want you to hit a two-handed forehand. And they go, okay, I'm going to hit a two-handed forehand. And all of a sudden, they're in a good position. So I'm going to try to use things that they're familiar with and then introduce the golf club. The golf club, the weight of the golf club, the grip of the golf club. Like we spend so much time talking about all these things. And, in air quotes, we call them fundamentals. But really, to me, like as I've gone through all this stuff through time, I don't really know what is an absolute fundamental. The only fundamental that I can really tell you is that you've got to make sure that the club face is in line with the shot that you're trying to hit when you get to a point where you have that ability. But there's nothing that says you got to hold this with two hands. I can hit the ball with one hand quite successfully, and I can do it with my left hand quite successfully. So that's pretty much how I kind of deal with a first timer.
That's great. Luke Guzzi had a question for you.
Go ahead.
Okay, Michael, going back to the player that has this knack for just doing it, and you observe what they're doing, ask them the question, how did you do that? And they say, I don't know, I just do it. Will you, as a coach, then make them aware of some of the good things that they do so that if they do struggle a little bit down the road, they can kind of go back and draw on the information of what they did naturally?
So that's a really interesting question. And so the answer is, what I want to do is I want to watch them. I'm a baseball player by heart. So I want to see them do it 3 times in a row. And if their swing looks the same 3 times in a row and they still can't answer that question, then what I know at that point is they're much more of a spatial learner. And so what I'll do at that point is I'll record their swing and then I'll hang on to it. But I'm not going to try to introduce something to somebody that's going to get them thinking about something that they don't need to think about. Right? And we all have a genius in us. We have to figure out how to bring the genius out. Now, what I will do is over time, because there's a natural curiosity that people have when all of a sudden they get better. They start hitting shots. They want to know what they looked like. They want to know how they did whatever. They want to know how to curve the ball as they start to elevate in their expectations, right? So they stand there, they make a good golf swing, they hit the ball. And it goes pretty good. And at some point, that thing is going to turn into, I just want to make contact. It'll turn into, I actually want to hit it there. And then there starts to narrow. So there, like the game of golf, there narrows from the fairway to the green to the hole. And so as that narrowness starts to take place, it also starts to take place with the better you get. So now the there is, I don't want to just hit it there. I want to hit it there, but I want it to look like this. I want it to move left to right, or I want it to move right to left, or I want to hit it higher, or I want to hit it low. And at that point, now as they have sort of become more and more inquisitive, more curious, that's when we'll start to talk about how to do what they did. But one of the other things that I will always do is make sure that I teach them in a spatial fashion. And that spatial fashion will be through pictures, because these people that have this are extremely visual. And we're all visual. We're all very visual, 50% or more with individuals. So we're all visual, but some are more visual than others. And if I have one that's more visual than another, then I'll just go, okay, this is what a draw swing looks like. This is what a fade swing looks like. Copy this swing. What did they do? And try to point it out. What does the club face look like? Well, it looks like it's more pointed to the sky. Okay, great. So point the club more to the sky. And then I don't even tell them what to do. I just let them point it more to the sky. And so I kind of try to stay out of the way of the genius. That's what I try to do. And then I try to enhance the genius by understanding how the genius processes the information, if that makes sense.
That's great. Eric Hanley, what you got?
All right. So, Michael, you mentioned earlier you've got a large toolbox to work from, right? And you can cook in Italian, you can cook in Mexican, whatever, right? When we're working with younger instructors, when you work with younger instructors, do you recommend that they expand and try to hit all of the areas of golf instruction, or are some better off kind of honing in on one particular area, becoming an expert in putting or an expert in course management, or you like kind of a well-rounded view, or a mix of two? What do you see there?
So, Gibbsy, we're going to go back over to 5 here for a second. So first of all, Eric, this is a fantastic question. And what I would tell you is this: when I got into when I first got into this business of golf, I sat and I thought to myself in my motion for direction, how am I going to separate myself from other people? How am I going to get a head pro job? Because I hate to say this, but I don't really care about selling a shirt to somebody. If they want to get a shirt, I'll give them a shirt, but I don't really care. What I care about is helping people play better golf, right? And so anybody can sell a shirt. They sell it better at, a men's clothing store than I do. So I can't beat them in that way. Anybody can write. They probably can write better than I can. So a tournament thing, I'm going to lose that game. But I can be a great teacher. And people that play golf want to learn how to play golf. So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to separate myself. And then I sat down and I thought, okay, what's the easiest way for me to separate myself instructionally? Well, nobody's really into, this is back in 1987. Nobody's really teaching putting like they teach the golf swing. And so I kind of immersed myself in instruction in putting. And what I did was I started to kind of like chase down these different things. And I found a guy in Texas, and I found a guy a number of years later, actually, who was up in Massachusetts. And I started getting people to explain how a ball rolls. This is well before launch monitors. How does a ball roll? What makes it roll? And I spoke to people who played pool and ping pong. And I would just ask all these questions. And I became known as a really good putting coach. And then eventually I became known as a good coach, a good full swing coach. And then I helped a player win a PGA Tour event with putting. And then I became known sort of a little bit more, publicly, because I could teach putting. And then I gave putting lessons to a bunch of players. And then I gave full swing lessons to a bunch of players that were doing this stuff for a living. And that's how it kind of blossomed. And so what I would say is, if you're a young coach and you want to try to do this stuff, what I would urge you to do is, it's just like college. Like, you go to college, you get a liberal arts education, which is what I got, right? This is the Randolph-Macon education. It was a liberal arts education, but I majored in psychology, right? And so I can teach everything, but I majored in putting. And then as a result of majoring in putting, I started to kind of get a little bit better in all these other areas. but I majored in putting, and I still major in putting. I still read a lot of putting stuff. I still talk to people about putting. But I majored, that's my major. That's my main area of focus. And that's how I separated myself. And so, like, what I would say, learn how to become, like, we all teach bunker play, but do we really understand what's going on in a bunker? David Armitage, who has a show on Sirius XM, wrote a book about bunker play. It's a great book. There's not a lot of books about bunker play. There's a bunch of books on putting now. There's a bunch of books on full swing. There's not a bunch of books on putting. I mean, on bunker play. Investigate bunker play. Understand bounce. Explain bounce to people so that we really understand it. What is bounce? What's effective bounce? Like, really understand it. And so, you know, what I would urge people to do is to find your major, get a liberal arts education, but find your major. And then that way you can kind of separate yourself.
It's great,
That's
bud.
cool. Thank you.
Excellent. Hey, Michael, folks, I have to go. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the input here. So Patrick Cherry, come on over here for a second. Everybody knows Patrick Cherry from PGA Magazine, and, you know, some know him personally.
Everybody.
So this bird just came in at 6 o'clock. He's getting married Saturday.
Awesome.
So
That's
there he
great.
is. So I'm going to bang out a whole bunch of lessons Saturday morning and then go watch him get married.
Oh, that's great. Good for you.
There it is.
Congratulations, Patrick. That's
Michael,
great.
how's it going?
So
Yeah.
my
Good to see
buddy,
you.
come on over here, Maddie, real quick.
Mr. Surratt.
These two birds grew up together. This is another one of my friends, Matty Boy. We call him Matty Boy. We call this
Matty.
guy Art and Patrick, and we're going to take him out for a little dinner, Michael, at Trevi.
Oh,
Favorite
I was
spot,
going to
Michael?
say, save me a seat, but it's too long a drive.
It is.
Come
So
on down.
you're all more than welcome
Right.
to.
I'll be
Talking
down.
about it.
I would love to. Congratulations, Patrick. That's great news,
Thanks,
man. Really
See you,
happy
man.
for you. All righty, Maddie, nice to meet you.
Michael,
Have a
thank
good
you.
night.
And,
See you, Lou.
and
Great to see you,
thanks
brother.
for the section.
Thank you.
Jeffrey, Eric, appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.
You bet.
Thanks, Lou.
Hey, folks, we got a little more time left here with Michael, but open up for questions from the floor before Michael closes out. Go ahead, Lee.
Any questions?
Yeah, Lee just raised his hand. Lee Taylor, hop off of mute. Lee, go ahead.
All right. Thank you.
Hey, Lee.
Thank you for having me on. Here's my
Yep.
question regarding the V1 pressure mat, the body track.
Yeah.
I watched several videos. Terry Hashimoto tells us, okay, the toes are the brakes, the heels are the accelerators. The first time I ever saw somebody with some weird footwork was Laura Davies years ago. As the moment of impact, she's up on her toes. I see Justin Thomas doing that. They're on their toes. Now, obviously, we're talking about ground force right there and how they're pushing up, you know, to jump higher if you were a basketball player. I get it. However, with putting pressure onto the left heel, going on the downswing, forward swing, and an impact, I am really confused about, okay, I got two great players, Justin Thomas and Laura Davies up on their toes. Nelly Korda is a little bit like that herself at impact. And yet I'm hearing, okay, put pressure on the left heel. Can you explain what I should be teaching? I'm not so sure. I know you have to use the ground as a force, but let's do it correctly.
Well, here's the thing, right? So that term correctly is a fascinating one, Lee, and I appreciate you asking the question and joining tonight. But correctly is a very, very interesting word because it's individual, right? And not only is it individual, but it's, in my opinion, it's shot shape related. And so there's a lot of little different things that go on, and there's things that, quite frankly, we really don't understand. And I think that over time, we'll get to understand them differently. But so I give you an example, right? We see the footwork of Scotty Scheffler, and his right foot drops back dramatically to the inside, and then eventually it slides forward with a driver. Scotty Scheffler rarely rarely starts a golf ball to the right of his target. I mean, it is remarkably rare that he is going to start a ball to the right of his target. Now, Greg Norman, who had not the same footwork, but a similar movement with his right foot, when he missed, the majority of the time he missed to the right. You think about what he did in 1984 at Winged Foot with a 5-iron into 18. He hit the thing off the planet to the right. And then in 1986, he hit the exact same shot on 18 to the right of the right greenside bunker and he lost 2 major championships, in my opinion, because of those shots. He was in a playoff at the U.S. Open, but he lost to Nicklaus right away. But those shots were a problem for him. But the footwork is similar. Well, why does Scotty do that with his foot and it doesn't affect him the way Norman did? Well, one of the things that's really fascinating about Scotty is Scotty, playing with different equipment, obviously, Scotty likes to fade the ball. Well, why does Scotty's footwork go this way when he's moving the ball left to right? Well, if you notice Scotty's eye line, Scotty tilts his eye into what I call a draw eye line. So Scotty's eye line, like Rory McIlroy, who does hit a draw and does hit it up into the air and hit it high, they both have the same eye line. But Scotty's eye line doesn't affect his shot shape, which is a cut. So he's working against his eyes. And it's my opinion that the reason why his foot does what his foot does is because he wants to hit a cut. And so he's trying to hang on, but his eyes are over here and he's working against himself. And all of a sudden his foot does what his foot does. And sometimes I think what happens is the way feet work is not necessarily for the pressure. It's like almost like water's wet. Now, I know Eric will have a lot more to say about all this stuff than I do. I haven't done the studies that he has done, and I can't wait to read his studies. But what I can tell you is, and this is one thing that I have read over the last probably year, and that is this. I'm not going to tell you who wrote it. I'm not going to tell you what sport it came from. What I can tell you is that an individual wrote something, and he basically said, we got into trying to study ground forces with our player or players many, many years ago, over a decade ago. And what we found was that there's really no there is in effect what they said, that it's just individuals and how they do things differently. And so the reason why I share that with you is because that word correct is, it's not, there's one way to do it. There's a lot of ways people do it, and there's a lot of things that influence it. And it's body height and arm length and eye line and weight distribution and weight as a whole and shot shape. And it all goes into all these different things. And it comes out with Patrick Reed jumping back and Ludwig Åberg spinning on his left heel, and his foot opens up. But he doesn't leave the ground with his heel. He leaves it with his toe. And Scotty leaves and stumbles all over the place. Like, there's no correct. There just is. And so what you have to do is understand what's going on with their body. Is there an ailment? Is there an issue? Is there a hip? Is there a leg? Is there a back? Whatever. You got to understand that stuff. And that's the beauty of being a teacher is, I asked Butch this question about like, what was the most important part of his learning career? And he said, it's what I learned after I knew it all that made the difference. And at that point, what you realize is you're never going to learn everything. You're never going to understand everything. You're just going to continue the pursuit.
Thanks, Michael. Hey, buddy,
Yep.
I'm gonna pass it over to Cass to handle the rest of this and then tap out. But I gotta tap out. But I can't thank you enough for taking the time, and you're always so gracious with your time to me and to us. So can't thank you enough, buddy. And I'll be sure to reach out to you soon. Okay.
I look forward to that.
Um,
And don't forget to give me my points for the PGA. Okay.
I got
So
your PDR. I got your PDR points, and you know, I don't want to tell.
I need them. I need them. So make sure
I
get
don't want to tell everybody that you actually gave me a putting lesson. That was our lesson. I went up and I don't want to tell everybody. I don't want to tell you what my strokes game putting are like right now. So we're gonna have to,
Well,
gonna have to
that means
revisit.
you need to come back to me again this time. As I like to say to people, you get what you pay for, and you didn't pay for that.
I still have the receipt. Don't you worry about it. We're good. Cass, I'll turn it over to you, and then we got looks like we got Roger and John. But good night, everybody. Thanks so much for taking the time. See you.
Sweet. Yeah, I think I saw Roger first.
Okay.
And then we can pass it off to John.
Yeah, hi. Thank you very much for all your time. So the guys you were
welcome.
just talking about were all professionals. I love Lee's question because I see that all the time. But for the average Joe that comes in with their feet, I love that question. For me, if they get on their toes, their path suffers. I'm a big, more back left heel. And I think that seems to keep the fade square down the line longer for the normal Joe versus and kind of a better path in general. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's kind of way I feel for the Joes that I teach.
Yep.
I get that it's all about what I call it closing the door or staying in posture, so that they can kind of feel that down the line more.
Yeah.
What your thoughts on that? I mean,
Look, Roger, I would tell you this, and I appreciate you joining us tonight. I would tell you, if you've got something that's working, then keep doing it. And so, good on you. I think it's phenomenal. And I think that, look, this is a real topic of conversation, but think about this for a second. That line that somebody swung out of their shoes? I mean, that was a line that I remember hearing back when, and I'm 62. I remember hearing this line back when I was probably 15 or 16 years old. And my dad would say to me, don't swing out of your shoes. Well, we understand that when you swing out of your shoes, you're swinging hard and you're using the ground and you're doing certain things. And we've understood that for a while. And so what I think now that's happening more than ever is that we've understood that you gotta swing hard. You want to hit it far, you got to swing hard, and we want to hit it far. I'm not an individual that necessarily subscribes to one particular thing for, everybody. I like to have a direction that I would say, okay, this is what I have found to be successful with others, so let's give this a try or whatever. And I think that if you're getting success out of that, I think it's great. And I would say, keep doing it. And I don't think you're wrong for doing what you do. And I don't think that you're right if you're doing something different. I think that you're wrong if you're doing something different. I think there's a lot of ways to teach this game. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's just such a phenomenal game, why it's a phenomenal sport.
All right, and then I guess we can end with John's question.
Okay.
Hey, Michael, thanks for the time. Just a couple quick questions for you, kind of tying around questions from Lee and Roger both. I've kind of dove down the Mike Adams rabbit hole and Scott Cowks and some of these guys that are big believers in how biomechanics affects the movement of the body in the golf swing. Now that we've had the good fortune maybe to head down this rabbit hole of how swing movement is affected biomechanically, how has that affected your teaching methodology, and what have you maybe found that you use as kind of base parameters in how you approach students, injuries, body mobility, shape, height, all of it?
Well, I think, and I appreciate you coming and asking the question. What I think TPI has done an amazing job, a revolutionary job in getting all of us to understand that the body is maybe the most important part of the golf swing. And I think we all kind of understood it, but we didn't really understand it the way those guys understand it. And a whole lot of businesses have opened up as a result of it. I work with a company called Par for Success, and they do a great job, particularly in an online capacity, of helping people understand their body's limitations, what they can and can't do, and then what they should expect. And I think that in turn that helps coaches understand the importance of the body. But what I would say is this. I kind of feel like I go back to the time management thing. And time management is a really important part of what allows us to do what we're going to do. And if I have somebody and I know that they have poor external rotation in their lead side, okay, now the question is, are they going to be able to do anything about it? And if they tell me that they don't have the time to do anything about it, well, then I'm going to try to teach them in a different way so that they can play with poor external rotation in the lead hip. Okay. And so, and I'll tell you a story, which has been something that's an important part of what I, and how I teach. I was down visiting one of my very closest friends, a guy who's a golf pro named Ted Kegel. Ted has taught a couple of individuals right from the time that they were 7 or 8 years of age, all the way up to playing on the tour and winning on the tour. In fact, winning major championships on the tour. He's out of North Carolina. And he brought me to he's a 8th or 9th degree martial artist. And he brought me to a sensei friend of his. And this sensei friend of his teaches a class. And in that class, he doesn't let people stretch. He doesn't let people change into the typical wardrobe that you would see individuals wear when they're going to do martial arts. And the reason why he does that is because he's teaching combat. I think it was combat karate. And what he said in this was, if you're going to get into a fight, you're going to get into combat, nobody's going to allow you to change your wardrobe and stretch. And it was a fascinating way for me to look at instruction, because what you have to realize is there's limiters, and limiters are time, limiters are body, limiters are all kinds of different things, and you got to find the limiters. And so if somebody tells you that they're limited in the amount of time that they have to put into the betterment of their game, are you going to ask them to go and work on improving their body so that they can then use their body in a way in which it's going to make you happy as a coach? Or are you going to ask them to do a workaround? And what I have found is that if I, through time, and I've been doing this stuff for a while, if I ask somebody to go and take additional time out of their day to go and work on their body, and they are not a golf enthusiast like a me or like a you, they will leave me and go find somebody else that will try to help them. And so what I try to do is, and one of my good fortunes is I only work with golf enthusiasts now, so I can tell them do this and they will. And then I can get them to be more functional. And B, that if I'm teaching somebody that does have limiters, I'm not going to, and they don't have time to work on it, I'm not going to ask them to do something that they're not going to do. And so I'm going to change the way I teach so that I can get them to hit a golf ball that they can chase without a lot of effort, and they can shoot lower scores. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Still goes back to being the person in front of you.
Yep, it's exactly right. It's exactly right.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael.
You bet. Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Michael, for hopping on. We really appreciate it. If you just want to finish maybe with some words of advice for everybody, or just a closing message, that'd be great.
Yeah. Beautiful. So here's what I would tell you. What I would tell you is, first of all, thank you for allowing me to do this. I love to do this. Like, you know, Eric asked me a question about where my passion comes from. I get to do what I love to do each and every day. There's no shot clock in my day when it comes to golf. People want to talk about golf. I want to talk about golf with them. I love it. I'm addicted to it. And I love talking with an audience that is a really high audience like yourselves. So 1, thank you. 2, challenge yourselves. Challenge yourselves with books. Challenge yourselves with going to do things that you're uncomfortable with. Challenge yourself with going to listen to people that are talking about stuff that you disagree with. Challenge yourself. And what I will tell you is, as you challenge yourself, you're going to grow. And as you grow, you're going to become better. But ultimately, know this, and this is the most important part of all this stuff. The reason why you pursue knowledge, the reason why you pursue by attending things like this, why you pursue improvement in your teaching, is ultimately for the improvement of your player. And that is the thing to me that's the most important. And when I share with people about that mindset, that you owe it to your player to go to these things, that all of a sudden it changes your mindset and it allows you to become open-minded. And I'll tell you this one story as I close. I had a guy come to me one day, and I will never forget this as long as I live, and this is a motivator for me. And he said, you know, I put him through my questions, and he ultimately gets to this point, and he says, Michael, my big problem is I shank the ball once every like 15 or 20 swings. I've gone to 2 other PGA professionals, and both of them said the same thing to me, which was, what you do is so minute that I can't help you. And it made me sick to my stomach, because I started thinking to myself, what if you had, like, you love life, like I love life, and all of a sudden you find out that you've got an incurable disease and you've gone to all these people and nobody can help you and you're going to die. It would be tragic. We're talking about the game of golf. We have a responsibility to grow the game of golf. We have a responsibility to represent the brand of the PGA of America. We have a responsibility to represent the brand of the Philadelphia or the Metropolitan PGA. We have a responsibility to all these different things, including our last names. And if we don't know how to fix everybody, then we are failing everybody, including ourselves, our families, our associations, our schools, our towns, our everything. And so I live by this one thing, which is don't embarrass the program. You're in my program, I'm in your program. And what you owe it to me, you owe it to everybody in the section, you owe it to every PGA professional to be the very best coach you can be. And being the very best coach you can be means you attend seminars even though you disagree. You attend seminars even though you might not have time. You attend seminars even though you might be tired. You do things even though you might not want to do them, because you owe it to all of us in this great game. And that's what you need to do. And so what I tell you is, don't be the coach that can't help somebody figure out how to get rid of a shank, even though it's a minute thing that's going on. Don't be the guy that turns somebody away from the game of golf. And so put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Be comfortable having uncomfortable moments. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Because that's one of the things that I try to do. Somebody asks me a question. If I don't know the answer, I don't know this, but I'll find out. And I'm going to track it down and I'm going to find out. And I do. And it helps me grow. And so what I would ask you to do is carry that with you. That line, don't embarrass the program, is something I learned in a class, a coaching basketball class at Randolph-Macon College. It was the most important class that I took, and I took a lot of really important ones. Most important class I ever took. It changed the way I viewed so many different things and how I behave and what I do and how I approach stuff. And I can tell you, when you realize that you carry with you so many more people than just yourself, then all of a sudden it'll urge you to be the very best you could be, not one day, not 2 days in a row, but every day and all days. And all of a sudden, you become better at what you do, so that that individual that's coming through your door that you've not met yet walks out of there going, hey, do you have time next week? And when you do that, then you'll have achieved the success that you want. I can't thank you all enough for being a part of this and supporting me. I thank Jeff. I thank Eric. I thank, obviously, each and every one of you in this room, because it means a great deal to me. And so thank you all. I wish you nothing but the best. And if I can ever help, my email is michael@michaelbreed.com. My first name at my full name.com. And if somehow you forget that and you want to get in touch with me, Jeff, Lou, Eric, everybody, Cassie, they all have my contact. Please feel free to reach out. Okay. God bless you all. I hope you have a great night, and I hope you have a great season.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michael. Really
Thank
appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Good night.